Hey guys, it's Chris. From actually using bed sheets to escape out the window to using wooden guns, here are 8 crazy and ingenious prison escape attempts. Number 8. Toothpaste and toilet paper. One of the biggest problems with trying to get out of prison is that if you try and do the long con version of it, you have to try and conceal the attempts from all the guards. And in one Australian prison, a pair of inmates decided to do that with something you wouldn't expect: toothpaste and toilet paper. So how would that work? Well, it's a multi-step plan. First, they would dig into the brick and mortar and attempt to create a tunnel. Then, when they needed to conceal everything, they would go and use the toilet paper to cover up the hole and use toothpaste to glue it down in order for it not to be seen. And then, as noted by the guard who would eventually catch them, they would color the toilet paper to disguise the hole and make people think nothing was going on. However clever it may have been, the guard on duty at this prison noticed the cracks in the mortar. I noticed near the cell bars at the back of the cell what appeared to be diggings into the concrete, and the mortar had been removed from around the large sandstone block, the officer said in a statement by the New South Wales Justice Department. The inmates were separated after that, but you have to admire their creativity using very basic methods to try and conceal their plot. Number 7. Bed sheet rope. In various prison movies, it's been shown that using a rope out of bed sheets is a surefire way of escaping prison. But has anyone ever actually tried to use that trick? Well, yes, they have. And in the case of a 2-person team in Chicago, Illinois in 2012, they did it bigger and better than arguably any prison movie has ever dared to go. That's because the rope that these 2 men used wasn't 10 feet long, or even 20 feet long, or even 50 feet long. Rather, this rope made of bed sheets was an astounding 200 feet long. The reason they needed it to be that long was that they were in a high-rise prison, and thus the length was needed in order to get to the ground safely. What impressed guards just as much was that they were able to do this escape within the dead of night, as they were seen by guards during the 10 p.m. cell check and were gone by 5 a.m. One has to wonder 2 things about this prison escape. 1. How is it they were able to hide a 200-foot rope of bed sheets in the cell they shared? And 2, did they get this idea from Mythbusters after they proved it could work and be done quite easily? Number 6. John Dillinger's wooden gun. There are a lot of famous criminals in and out of history, but in the 1930s, few criminals were as feared and revered as John Dillinger. Dillinger was a career criminal from a very young age, and by the 1930s, when he was fully grown, he had become infamous for the way he robbed banks with such ease, while also being beloved in some ways for how he treated people during said robberies. But what really separated Dillinger from the rest was that he was clever and knew how to manipulate people, such as in 1934, when he was locked up in a prison called Lake County Jail, a place that was supposed to be escape-proof, and Dillinger got out of there with nothing but a wooden gun. To be clear, he never fired a shot from said gun like other inmates in their makeshift weapons. Rather, he carved right in his cell a gun made from black wood, even writing Colt 34 on it to sell the illusion. Then, when a trustee came to give him a bar of soap and a basin of water, he put the fake gun to the man's neck and threatened to kill him if he didn't do what he said. Dillinger and a fellow inmate basically took control of the prison and left in the warden's car with hostages, which they released without injury, even giving them money for cab fare, proving that sometimes the best prison escape devices aren't a weapon, but your mind. Number 5. Faking AIDS. Medical conditions in prison are a serious matter. An infamous prisoner, Stephen Russell, knew that. Russell was already an infamous prison escapee, having gotten out of prison 3 times in various creative ways, mainly by impersonating people. Also, he could be with the love of his life, Phil Morris. However, it was the 4th attempt that made Russell so legendary that he eventually got a movie made after him. Basically, he used laxatives and a radical diet to lose a lot of weight, which wouldn't be a warning sign except that at that point in time, it made him look like he was having AIDS. Late-stage AIDS at that. Fearing for his life, the prison sent him from the higher security facility he was in to a minimum security prison with a hospital. After that, he was taken to hospice care so he could be better taken care of for his condition. But of course, he didn't have AIDS, he was just faking it. And no one tested him properly to see if he did have AIDS. So since hospice care had no real security, he waited for his opportunity and he walked right out the door. He was eventually caught again, but not after faking his death via a false death certificate and more. Number 4. El Chapo's Tunnel. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman was by and large one of the most infamous criminals in the world. He was a drug kingpin who had near unlimited wealth and power. When he was eventually arrested in Mexico in 2014, he was more than fine with it. He used his power and influence to get everything he wanted within the prison. Eventually, the US decided that they wanted to deal with him personally, so he planned his escape. But he executed it without lifting a finger, outside of counting cash. Usually when you hear that a prisoner has dug a tunnel to freedom, you think about how they worked tirelessly to get the most basic tunnel made so they could escape. However, El Chapo used his influence and hired some of the best tunnel builders in the area to make him a tunnel while he rested in his cell. Yeah, he outsourced the whole thing. The end result was a tunnel 33 feet underground and nearly a mile long, 30 inches wide, and 5.5 feet tall. It had lights going through it, and even had an air filtration system. And once he reached the end, there was a motorcycle waiting for him so he could escape. El Chapo eventually got caught again and was indeed sent to the US, but not without a creative use of resources to get out of jail in the first place. Number 3. Smartphone. Believe it or not, phones in prison are one of the most important and distributed contraband items because they can be used by various prisoners to contact family members, gang members, to get advice or plans and more. But for Neil Moore, he used his smartphone to get out of prison. Or more accurately, he used a smartphone that he got to make the prison release him. Moore was in prison for stealing money from banks via false claims and transfers using a smartphone. So when he got into prison, he knew a smartphone was his way out. He used a technique called typosquatting, where you make a fake website that looks and sounds like a real one in the world. And he made a fake website that resembled the local courthouse that put him in prison in the first place. After making the site, again all from his phone, he sent an email from the website to the jail demanding his release. And they complied. Weirdly though, despite no one catching on to what he did, Moore turned himself back into the prison, even agreeing to plead guilty to extra counts of crimes for what he did. Number 2. MAILBAGS. Richard Lee McNair was in prison for murder in Louisiana. And over the course of many years, he would escape multiple times, 3 to be exact. However, his third showed him in his finest form, as he used his job repairing mail bags in prison to get out. In short, his job was literally to repair the jail mail bags that had been brought in, and he would send them back out when they were fully fixed. So after 9 months of doing this, he was able to use the mail bags to hide an escape pod that he made, complete with breathing tube for reasons to be explained. And when it got picked up, it was shrink-wrapped and sent to a warehouse. McNair was in that pod for a little over an hour. Then he escaped when the nearby guards left. However, that's not the end of the story, because not long after fleeing his pod, he was stopped by an officer who was looking for McNair. But McNair played it cool and calm, and he was able to be released by the officer through nothing but talking and working lies. He was caught later, but the footage of the encounter with the officer made him even more famous. Number 1. Escape from Alcatraz. In the history of Alcatraz, there is no confirmed escape attempts that were believed to have worked. Many tried to escape. Many even got outside the walls of the prison itself. All were caught by guards or law enforcement before they could reach the mainland of San Francisco. The only exception is Frank Morris and the Anglin brothers, who escaped from Alcatraz in 1962 and whose fate has never truly been revealed. Their escape attempt is easily one of the most elaborate attempts ever made. They used arts and crafts to make dummies of themselves to fool the guards as they crafted their escape from within a hidden corridor. They used raincoats to fashion a raft which was sealed by glue that they had via materials within the prison, and they had even crafted a special drill to chip away at concrete in their cells so they could get out of them. The 3 men made their raft and got out of the prison in the dead of night, and they were never seen again. Most suspect that they all drowned, yet no bodies of either of them were ever found. What's more, one of the paddles they used while getting away was found in Angel Island via a tide that came up from the Marin headlands. And as Mythbusters proved in one of their earliest episodes, their escape attempt could have worked, but we'll never know if it really did. Thanks for watching. What did you think of all these crazy yet creative prison escape attempts and devices? Would you have thought of using these kinds of things to break out of jail? Let me know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe to World List, and I'll see you next time.